Becoming the King of England doesn't start as you expected. You are on your knees in a palace hall. A sword brushes your right shoulder, then your left, and the master of ceremonies pronounces your name. Everything seems to indicate that you have just entered the nobility, but there is one detail that breaks the illusion. They are going to call you sir or dame, yes, even though you haven't actually become a noble, nor will your child inherit any of this. This is exactly where modern knighthood plays with expectations. In the Middle Ages, a knight was something else. He was a warrior in armor, mounted on a horse that cost more than a peasant's house, trained for war, and bound by oath to his lord. He lived to fight and to protect the king's domains. He participated in tournaments that were as much spectacle as training, and his prestige depended on his courage, his skill with the lance, and his loyalty. Over the centuries, the title of knight ceased to be linked to battle and became a civil recognition. In the United Kingdom, that transformation continues to the present day. Today, you are knighted for achievements in music, science, literature, sports, or charitable work. That is why Sir David Attenborough, among others, shares a shelf with former warriors who could never have imagined that one day bravery would also mean holding a camera, a guitar, or a script. That sir or dame carries nuances. If you are named a knight bachelor, you are a knight without belonging to any order. It is the oldest form, but you can also be a knight within a chivalric order. This knighthood manifests in various forms. The oldest is the simple knight, the knight without belonging to any specific order. Alongside them are the orders of knighthood, with histories that splash across the walls of royal chapels and the banners of castles. The Order of the Garter, founded in the 14th century, is the highest chivalric honor in the United Kingdom. The ceremony preserves the medieval heart. It is usually held in royal palaces. There is a precise protocol. The monarch, or a senior member of the royal family, lightly touches your shoulders with a ceremonial sword and presents you with insignia that you will wear on formal occasions. There is no new throne or annexed lands. What you receive is a public recognition that combines centuries of symbols with the modern idea of service, and your prefix, sir, which will accompany you for the rest of your life. But it ends with you. Your children cannot inherit your status. With this rank, there are certain limits, and those limits prepare you for what comes next, because at the next step, the title no longer belongs only to you. It follows your surname, your lineage, and sometimes your problems. But when it seems the map is clear, a title arises that complicates everything. It also uses sir. It also imposes a status that is noticeable on a business card. The difference is that this sir does pass from parents to children, and its origin was not only honor but also money and politics. Here appears a dignity unique to the British world, a hereditary piece that is not titled nobility, but is one step away from it. It is the baron. During the Middle Ages, a baron was a direct vassal of the king, with lands, castles, and the obligation to provide men for war. He was not the most powerful. Above him were counts and dukes, but he was in the room where vital decisions were made. In 1215, when patience with John Lackland ran out, it was the barons who forced him to sign the Magna Carta. It was not a modern revolution, nor a constitution like today's, but it was the first documented check on royal power. No free man shall be arrested, except by the lawful judgment of his peers. Phrases like that were born from frustrated barons and a cornered king. Over time, the barony changed its nature. At first, being a baron could come by writ, a summons from the king to parliament that became hereditary if you responded and took your seat. Later, letters patent began creating baronies directly. Then came a twist that transformed the landscape forever. In the 20th century, the United Kingdom began creating life peers. The 1958 Act opened the doors to life peers, mostly at the rank of baron, to add experts, former ministers, scientists, and social leaders to the House of Lords without inheriting the seat. Personal title, non-transferable. And decades later, in 1999, another reform shook the House. Hereditary peers lost the automatic right to sit, leaving only a small representation elected among them. The message was clear: less inheritance, more life appointments. Socially, a baron is lord, and a baroness is lady. In heraldry, their rank crowns use stylized pearls, small visual cues of their place in the hierarchy. In Scotland, there was also the feudal barony, a dignity tied to land, which survived as a courtesy title even when the feudal system faded. Today, when you hear Baroness Thatcher or Lord Sugar, you are hearing the modern echo of a rank that has gone from private army to political and ceremonial tool, and yet it still carries the scent of original power. Land, council, battle, war. The next step in nobility prepares another historical surprise. The viscount was born as an aide and ended with its own status. It ranks above the baron, below the earl, and its history began with a specific task. This title is not permanent, but is used while the viscount's holder is alive. He was the earl's assistant, the administrator covering territory when the lord was away, the representative coordinating justice, taxes, and defense over extensive regions. Unlike many barons, who could concentrate on smaller lordships, viscounts accumulated broader responsibilities. They acted as a link between the earl's power and the network of local lords and officials. As the state consolidated and feudal structures lost strength, the practical office faded. The title remained as a symbol of precedence, another step in the precise gradation of British nobility. In the United Kingdom, there are few viscountcies, which gives them a special air. They are addressed as lord or lady, and sometimes the children of senior nobles use a viscountcy as a courtesy title. In official ceremonies, viscounts stand out for their pearl-adorned crown and the mantle appropriate to their rank. And so, step by step, we arrive at one of the oldest and, at the same time, most peculiar titles in the way it is named. The Earl. You open an Anglo-Saxon manuscript and encounter a strange term. It does not say count, it says earl. Before the Norman conquest, Anglo-Saxon rulers already used this word of Germanic root to designate those who governed entire counties, collected taxes, administered justice, and commanded troops on behalf of the king. When the Normans arrived, they changed structures, languages, and castles, but the prestige of those positions did not vanish. The county remained a prize of loyalty and service, a reward that monarchs granted to those who upheld their cause in decisive campaigns. Over the centuries, the earl established itself as a high-ranking peer, superior to the viscount and inferior to the marquis. In ceremonies, earls wear mantles trimmed with ermine and carry a coronet in which leaves and pearls alternate, a coded way of saying, "This is my rank." Many families holding counties maintain historical ties to the places that give their title. They may no longer administer justice there or recruit militias, but they maintain foundations, patronages, and residences that tell stories spanning centuries. The social address retains the traditional formula. An earl is a lord and his wife a countess. And if the earl looked after the heart of the territory, the rank that comes next was born looking at the edges, at the borders full of tension, the marquis. Imagine a fortress on a march, a borderland exposed to incursions from Scotland or Wales. Alarms sound frequently. Truces last only until the next patrol arrives, and only those with military authority and extraordinary resources can maintain peace. That is where the marquis fits. Its name comes from those marches, those dangerous boundaries where the map was on fire. Historically, the marquis had more weight than the earl because he defended a region that could erupt without warning. He built fortresses, raised militias, and negotiated local truces. He was, in essence, a border guardian with carte blanche to hold the kingdom's edge. With the end of border wars, the marquis ceased to be a military office and became a symbol of status, just below the duke. His wife is a marchioness, and his social address is lord. His crown combines leaves and pearls, and his ermine mantle distinguishes him from lower ranks. Many marquisates were linked to influential families in imperial politics and still maintain residences and foundations. The curious thing is that although he no longer watches over borders, he still carries the memory of a guardian, and above him there remains only one non-royal rank, the duke. In a state procession, dukes are recognized instantly, crowns with strawberry leaves, imposing mantles, and a rank that places them at the top of the nobility, just below royalty. Their title comes from the Latin dux, leader, and in England it was reserved for the sovereign's most powerful allies. The first dukedom, Cornwall, was created in the 14th century as the heritage of the heir to the throne, with lands and revenues that still today fund his work and shape his agenda. For centuries, dukedoms were synonymous with enormous possessions, fortunes, and influence spanning armies to cultural patronage. Today they remain the highest rank outside the royal family. Some, like Edinburgh, Cornwall, or Cambridge, are linked to the dynasty, while non-royal dukes retain the style of His Grace, an elegant echo of times past. The social and ceremonial position has remained constant since the Middle Ages, even though their direct political role has diminished with reforms. Today, their influence combines tradition, charity, cultural patronage, and representation in civic events. And while the nobility reaches its peak, above the peers dwells another world, that of the royal family. There, titles are born of blood, sovereign decree, and the line of succession. Let's start with the princes. In 1969, a 20-year-old knelt in a medieval castle before a crowd shouting in Welsh, English, and in every language of the world. That day, Charles was invested as Prince of Wales, but behind the spectacle, there was something far more complex than a symbolic title. Being a prince does not mean having political power. It does not even automatically make you a noble. It is not a simple inheritance, nor a direct reward. It is a mixture of lineage, the monarch's will, and a network of titles that seem taken from a strategy game. A single prince can be, at the same time, duke, earl, and baron. Why so many titles for one person? Everything has a reason, and it is not just protocol. For centuries, not all the king's children were princes. The title was regulated by letters patent, documents that defined who could call themselves Royal Highness and who could not. Today it seems automatic, but even now the rules change according to what suits the crown's image. And the curious thing is this: exceptions usually tell more than the rules. A prince is a visible figure, but a controlled one. He participates in investitures, military events, cultural projects, and charitable campaigns. Sometimes he even serves in the armed forces, but his role is not exactly that of a leader. It is that of a symbol. He represents continuity, heritage, and the soft power of an institution that constantly reinvents itself. He may hold noble titles, but he does not answer to the rules of the nobility. His rank is above, because what really matters is not being a lord or a duke. It is being in the line of succession, and there is only one destiny at the end of that line: the throne, the king, a silent abbey, a drop of sacred oil, and a crown that for a moment belongs to no one. Every time this ritual is repeated, as it has occurred for centuries at Westminster, it is not simply crowning a person. It is activating an ancestral code of power, symbol, and legitimacy. There was a time when the king decided everything, declared wars, chose ministers, imposed taxes. It was absolute power, but that power has been drained through revolutions, reforms, and treaties. Today the British monarch no longer governs, but still reigns, and that changes everything, because on the surface, his role seems ceremonial, but every gesture, every word, is loaded with constitutional significance. When he opens parliament, he is not reading a simple speech. He is announcing the political roadmap of an entire country. When he approves a law, even if it seems automatic, without that signature, the process is not complete. Even the appointment of the prime minister, no matter how dependent on votes, cannot be finalized without the king's intervention. And then there is the international stage. In diplomacy, the monarch is the fixed face of a country in constant change. He receives presidents, visits allied nations, maintains relationships more enduring than any government. He does not speak about politics, but everything he does is symbolic politics. There are also two connections that reveal the invisible weight of the office. First, the military. He is the head of the armed forces, not to lead battles, but to preside over rituals that strengthen unity. Second, the religious. He is the supreme governor of the Church of England, a connection that originated from the break with Rome and still marks the relationship between faith and state. None of this is improvised. Each day is meticulously planned. Private audiences with the Prime Minister, hospital visits, inaugurations, humanitarian missions, parades, and historical commemorations. Sometimes it seems like just protocol, until a national tragedy turns his presence into comfort, and there, the symbol gains meaning. You are left with a final image. You return to that palace hall, to the shoulder tap. They touch your shoulders, you rise. You are not a noble, but you carry centuries of history in 2 syllables, sir or dame. You do not inherit that weight. You earn it and care for it while you bear it. And without anyone saying it, that small gesture acts as a hinge between 2 worlds. Because even though today he thanks a scientist, a writer, or an athlete for having done something extraordinary, it all began with horses and armor. And it sounds simple, but becoming one was almost a torture disguised as honor. If you want to see how the life of the honorable knights begins, watch this video. Don't forget to support this type of content by subscribing and watching this other very curious video that you will love.